My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 behind my back, then sues me claiming I coerced her into signing the papers. Now I'm fighting for custody and half of the inheritance she was supposed to get from her grandmother. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this. Honestly, my life felt pretty stable. Married to Lisa for over 10 years. A nice house, decent job, and 2 kids who I'd die for. We had our issues, sure, but I always believed we were solid. That is, until I started noticing things that didn't add up, small stuff at first, then bigger cracks that shattered everything I thought I knew. It all started a few months ago when I noticed Lisa was acting weird. She'd come home late from work more often, but she'd always say she was stuck in meetings or had to finish a project. Her phone was always locked, which I thought was strange because she was never that secretive before. When I'd try to glance at her screen, she'd quickly hide it or change the subject. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. Then came the weirdest part. One day, I was cleaning the garage and found a receipt tucked inside some old boxes. It was for a hotel stay, nothing unusual on its own, but the date was after she claimed to have been working late that night. I looked up the hotel's location, and it was near downtown, close to a bar she'd never mentioned before. I thought maybe it was a work thing, but I had this gut feeling that something was off. I decided to dig deeper. I started paying more attention to her habits, and that's when I noticed her phone was always buzzing at odd times, late at night, early mornings. She'd get defensive if I asked about her calls or texts. I even caught her lying once about where she was when she was really at that bar, sneaking out after I went to bed. It was clear she was hiding something, and honestly I was furious but also scared. What if I was wrong? But then I found more evidence, an email from a guy named Jake with flirtatious messages and plans to meet up. That was the moment I knew I had to confront her. I didn't want to believe my wife, the woman I loved, could cheat on me, but the signs were there and I couldn't ignore them anymore. I decided I'd catch her red-handed if I had to. I planned to follow her one night, see where she went, who she was with. I felt like my world was crumbling, but I also knew I had to get to the truth. Little did I know, the truth was about to explode in ways I never saw coming. That night I followed her from a distance, trying not to make it obvious. She left the house around 9 p.m., dressed a little more provocatively than usual, and her phone was glued to her hand. I kept my eye on her as she drove to that same bar I'd seen her near before. It was a dive, the kind of place you wouldn't expect someone like Lisa to go alone, but she was there, sitting at the bar, laughing with a guy I didn't recognize. My stomach sank. I watched her lean in, whispering, touching his arm a little too casually. The way she looked at him, it was different from how she looked at me. I wanted to storm in, but I stayed back just watching. I saw her get up, head to the bathroom, and that was my cue. I parked nearby and texted her, fake casual, "Having fun tonight?" No reply. That's when I snapped a few pictures of her sitting there, her head tilted, her face lit by the bar's neon glow. I felt sick, angry, betrayed all at once. When she finally came out, I followed her car home. She parked in the driveway, acting normal, like nothing had happened. I stayed in my car, trying to process what I just saw. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to confront her, what to say, what she'd say. The next morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. That afternoon, I sat her down. I was calm at first, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her I knew she'd been lying to me about her whereabouts, about her late nights, about that bar. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she rolled her eyes like I was bothering her. "You're overreacting," she said. "You're just paranoid." "I work hard, I deserve some fun." I pressed her further, showing her the pictures I took. Her eyes widened for a second, then she scoffed. "That's not what it looks like. Jake and I are just friends. You're making a big deal out of nothing." But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at him, the way she touched him. It was just friends. It was more. The worst part was the way she lied so effortlessly, twisting everything around and calling me jealous, insecure. She told me I was imagining things, that I was paranoid because I didn't trust her. But I could see it in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught. That moment felt like the floor was opening beneath me. Everything I believed about our marriage was crumbling. I was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew this wasn't going to end well. After that confrontation, everything changed. Lisa acted like nothing had happened, but I knew better. She was deflecting, lying, trying to gaslight me into doubting my own instincts. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every time I looked at her, I saw the betrayal written all over her face. I felt like I was living with a stranger, someone I no longer recognized, someone capable of hiding a secret life behind my back. I started digging more, checking her emails, her social media, even her bank accounts. I wanted proof, real concrete evidence that she was cheating. That's when I discovered she had secretly sold our family home. Just like that, without telling me, she signed the papers, cashed out $350, $0, and moved the money into an account she refused to tell me about. I couldn't believe it. I was blindsided. How could she do this? We had plans, dreams, a life together. Now she was just erasing everything. When I confronted her about the house, she laughed it off. "It was my decision," she said coldly. "You weren't involved. You don't control me." But I knew she'd been planning this for months. She hidden the sale from me, probably because she knew I'd be furious. And then I found out she was also trying to sue me, claiming I coerced her into signing the papers. That was the last straw. How dare she accuse me of forcing her? She was the one sneaking around, hiding money, selling our home behind my back. My mind was racing. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, legally. I couldn't believe the woman I married was capable of this deception, of turning our life into a lie. I reached out to a lawyer immediately. I needed to fight for my rights, for my share of the inheritance her grandmother left us, and for custody of the kids. It was chaos, but I was determined to get to the bottom of it. In the meantime, Lisa continued to lie, spinning stories about how I was controlling, jealous, and abusive. She told friends she was finally free, that I was a terrible husband and a worse person. Meanwhile, I was left with the shock of losing everything: our house, the stability, the trust I thought we shared. The more I dug, the more I uncovered how deep her betrayal went. It was like a web of lies spun to destroy me, and I was caught right in the middle of it. I wondered how I could ever trust again, or if I even wanted to. All I knew was I had to fight back, for me, for my kids, for whatever shred of dignity I had left. The legal battle was a nightmare. Lisa had hired her own lawyer, and suddenly I was thrust into a war over the house, the inheritance and custody of our kids. She claimed I manipulated her into signing the sale papers, that I'd been abusive and controlling, utter lies, but she knew how to spin her web. I had proof of her secret affair, her secret sale, and her financial manipulations, but I also knew she was good at twisting things around. During the court hearings, she sat there with a bitchy smirk, acting like she was the victim. She kept insisting I was emotionally abusive, that I was trying to ruin her reputation because I was jealous and angry. But I had messages, bank statements, and witness statements that proved otherwise. Still, she played the victim well enough to sway some people. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, that she was willing to do anything to keep the money and the house for herself, even if it meant destroying me in the process. Meanwhile, she was pushing forward with her plans to get her inheritance from her grandmother, which she was supposed to receive. That money, around $150, was supposed to be part of our future, our retirement, our kids' education. Instead, she was trying to keep it all for herself, claiming she needed it to start fresh. I couldn't believe how cold she'd become, how little she cared about what she'd already stolen. And then the worst came when she filed a lawsuit against me, claiming I coerced her into signing the house sale papers. I knew she was lying. She'd signed under her own free will, or so I thought. But her lawyer argued that she was manipulated, that I'd used my authority as her husband to force her into it. I felt sick reading that, knowing she was trying to destroy my reputation and take everything I worked for. It was around this time I realized her plan was bigger than just cheating. She wanted the money, the house, the inheritance, everything. She'd lied, cheated again, and now she was trying to frame me as the bad guy. I stayed strong, kept fighting, but inside I was breaking. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about betrayal on a level I never thought possible. I had to find a way to turn this around, to prove I wasn't the villain she was painting me to be. The stakes couldn't be higher, and I knew I had to be smarter, more strategic, or I'd lose everything. The months that followed were a blur of court dates, legal battles, and sleepless nights. Lisa kept up her act, acting innocent in front of friends, crying fake tears in court, claiming I was abusive and manipulative. She even went as far as to accuse me of threatening her, which was absolute garbage, but it seemed to sway some of the judges and her lawyer. Meanwhile, I was gathering every piece of evidence I could find, texts, emails, witness statements, bank records, to prove her lies and her betrayal. One day, I discovered she had secretly transferred a large chunk of the inheritance, about $80, into her own account, trying to hide it from me. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go. It was clear she was trying to cut me out of everything, even the inheritance she was supposed to get from her grandmother. I had my lawyer subpoena her bank records, and the proof was irrefutable. That was the moment I knew I had to fight even harder. I also found out she'd been planning to take the kids and leave town once she got her hands on the money. She'd even looked at new apartments nearby, talking about how she wanted a fresh start. I was furious. She was willing to abandon her own children just to get her hands on some cash. The thought of losing custody of my kids crushed me, but I knew I had to stay strong and fight for them. I filed for full custody, and the court hearings became more intense. Throughout it all, I felt rage bubbling inside me. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, selling our home behind my back, lying about everything, cheating on me, and now trying to take everything I cared about. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at myself for trusting her for so long. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat and think she could get away with it? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind to her true nature. But deep down, I knew I'd done everything I could. The only thing left was to fight back and make sure she didn't get away with it. One of the most shocking moments came when her lawyer tried to argue that I was an unfit father because I was emotionally unstable and controlling. They brought in a psychologist, trying to paint me as the bad guy. I was furious. I knew I had to show I was a good dad, that I loved my kids and would do anything to protect them from her manipulation. I hired my own experts, and slowly the truth started to come out. I could see the court beginning to see through her lies. It was a long, exhausting process, but I refused to give up. I had to stay strong for my kids, for myself. I knew Lisa's plan was to destroy everything I built, but I wasn't going to let her. I was determined to get justice, to reclaim my life, and to keep my children safe. The battle wasn't over yet, but I was ready to fight to the end. In the end, the court ruling was a hard-fought victory, but it didn't come without a cost. I managed to secure full custody of the kids, and the judge ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen inheritance, including the house sale profits and the transferred funds she tried to hide. The judge also dismissed her claims of coercion, citing the mountain of evidence showing she acted of her own free will. Her lies unraveled under scrutiny. But the damage was done. Emotionally, I was drained, and I knew my trust in her was shattered forever. Lisa's face during the final hearing was a mix of rage and defeat. She sneered at me, but I felt nothing but relief. Relief that I'd fought for what was right, that I'd protected my children from her greed and manipulation. The house was sold, and I used part of the inheritance to buy a new place for me and the kids, a fresh start. I kept the money she tried to steal, but made sure it was enough to give the kids stability and security. Looking back, I realize how blind I was for so long. I trusted her completely, never imagining she'd betray me like this. The betrayal cut deep, but it also made me stronger. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to that voice telling me something was wrong, and to never ignore the signs. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to get justice, exposing lies and deception, no matter how painful it is. The whole experience changed me. I became more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of what real loyalty looks like. I still love my kids more than anything, and I want them to grow up knowing what integrity is, what it means to stand up for yourself and fight for what's right. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm just grateful I managed to come out of this mess with my dignity intact. To anyone going through something similar, I'd say this: don't ignore the red flags. Trust your gut and don't be afraid to fight for yourself and your family. Sometimes the truth is ugly and the road to justice is long and painful. But in the end, honesty and perseverance can prevail. Keep your head up, stay strong, and never let someone else's betrayal define you. Life goes on, and so will you.